Hey, good evening. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends of all ages. Thank you for joining us on the Thursday Night Hockey Show. I'm flying solo. This is your buddy Dave Valente, or Silly String on Facebook, for reasons that are too dumb to mention. So, uh, lots to go over this week. Actually, less to go over this week because we have less teams still in the fight. And so let's jump right into it. Colorado has booked their ticket to the Stanley Cup Finals. Congratulations to the Avalanche, their first trip since early 2000s. So um, uh, good on them. They've finally kind of realized that all that talent they've been accumulating over the last few years. When you've got guys like Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, you start throwing in guys like Dale McCarr and Bowen Byram. Um, you are you're set up for what should be the first of at least a few runs. I know that the salary cap might get them because of current economic conditions and things like that. But I expect Colorado to be here, and I think we expected in the last couple of seasons to make that climb. But sometimes you have to learn the lesson in the playoffs to be able to make it to the next level. So, uh, yeah, good on Colorado. Unlike Calgary, I think it's a case of there were too many weapons for Edmonton. Edmonton is an offensive juggernaut. Their defense is trash. Although, I mean, uh, Darnell Nurse, we find out at the end of these playoff series that these guys have been playing with, major injuries and things like that. Apparently, uh, uh, torn labrum for Darnell Nurse. It was one of the few bright spots on the back end for the Edmonton Oilers, and it really didn't seem to hamper his game too much. I mean, he was scoring goals and getting up and down the ice and doing what he could do. Uh, just the rest of the defense and Mike Smith were just not good enough to keep the puck out of the net for the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche were able to score where the Calgary Flames could not. And the the beast that is Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, Evander Kane, uh, Zach Hyman. Those guys couldn't score enough to keep up with the Avalanche. Yeah, it was truly an avalanche. Um, it didn't turn like the Calgary series where Calgary wins the first game in a wild shootout, and then Edmonton just swamps uh, Calgary. Calgary can keep up. This one, Colorado kept up, exceeded, and got the sweep. So they have plenty of time off. Um, the one thing to consider, though, we saw this for the start of the other series, is it's going to be quite a while. Like, perhaps I think they've already said that they're going to start no earlier than Wednesday for the Stanley Cup final. I think it's probably Thursday, more likely they'll be starting the series. Um, uh, So that's gonna be 9, almost 10 days off between series for Colorado. Tampa in this series against the Rangers, the first 2 games did not look good at all. They looked very slow. And a lot of people started talking about, is this kind of the end of the run for the Lightning? They're gonna get passed up by the young upstart Rangers. It took Tampa 2.5 games to really get their legs underneath them. They finally were able to do that by the third period of game 3 at home, and we're able to power through the Rangers, and tie that series up on Monday night or Tuesday night, sorry. Um, so will this, uh, will this layoff really hurt the Colorado Avalanche? Now, they have some injuries. Darcy Kemper, did not finish the series. It was Pavel Francouz, although Kemper was on the bench as the backup as the series progressed to game 4. Um, but Pavel Francouz was able to win it. Um, and that was the interesting thing. I think, uh, unlike Calgary, Calgary had better goaltending this season than Colorado did. I just think that the overall weapons from top to bottom of that team are far better. Um, but I think if you're Colorado, you still wanna get Darcy Kemper back in the net for the opening part of the next series. I think he will be starting game 1 whenever that is. Um, Other injury was, Andrew Cogliano, went down late in, game 4. We'll see how he's able to come back. And of course, all the nicks and dings and all that stuff, we'll see if, Nazem Kadri can come back. He missed some time after getting boarded by Evander Kane. Um, uh, and that's another thing we should talk about is what happens with Evander Kane, now that his season is done with the Oilers. Do the Oilers bring him back? I mean, it's hard to argue with his offensive production in the playoffs. He had 15 goals in the playoffs. I think both the Rangers and Tampa and Colorado might have uh, take a little bit of time in the finals to be able to catch Evander Kane and his total. I think he's a nice contract. It's a nice payday. Whether it comes in Edmonton, which is up against the cap and has just a crap ton of money invested in just 3 players, um, in Draisaitl and McDavid and Darnell Nurse. Um, can they afford to bring him back? Because the other thing they have to get in the offseason is goaltending, because they can't go for another season with Mike Smith as your number 1. That's just setting yourself up for failure. If you get this far in the Stanley Cup Finals or the Stanley Cup playoffs, you gotta address the places where the need was shown, and it wasn't goaltending. Um, so, yeah, I mean, it looks like Colorado's gonna have a longer layoff than Tampa, and Tampa didn't look good at those first 2 games. It took a while to get their legs under them, and, will that happen with Colorado? Colorado's younger. Tampa has won 2 Stanley Cups in less than 2 years, figuring with the bubble in November of 2020 and the June of 2021. So really, it was in the span of like 8 months that they won the Stanley Cup. Or actually, no, 7 months they won the Stanley Cup, and now they're on the way to try and win that third one in less than 2 years. That would be quite the feat. Hopefully, we won't have to deal with another pandemic to see that ever happen again. Um, yeah, um, will will Colorado be able to recover quickly and get into the series, especially if whoever emerges from the Tampa Rangers series will be in form. They may not be as fresh as Colorado, but um, they're going to be game ready going into the finals. Whether it is settled in 6 or 7. We're 2-2 now, so, tonight is game number 5 for the Rangers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is gonna be an interesting, night. So, um, like I said, took 2.5 games for Tampa to get into the series. They're down 2-0. I actually posted on Facebook, said, "Man, it looks like the, Stanley Cup Finals this season is gonna be Colorado versus the Rangers." I know the NHL would love the NHL would love that. The, ESPN would love that. The ratings would be through the roof, especially the New York media market and Denver media market. Um, but going into that 3rd period, it felt like the Rangers took their foot off the gas and thought that they could coast home for a victory. On the road, you can't do that in the playoffs, and, Tampa found that extra gear and got, 3 goals in that, uh, 3rd period, including the last one with, 41 seconds left or so. So they got the 3-2 victory in game 3 and then swamped them, I believe 4-1 in game number 4 to tie the series going back to New York tonight at Madison Square Garden. I believe puck drop is at 8 p.m. tonight, so hopefully we'll be done before that, so we can all watch the hockey game. Um, the end of the Colorado series marked the end of TNT's broadcast schedule for this season. TNT gets the Stanley Cup final next season, but one of the interesting things that happened the night of game 3. Paul Bissonnette apparently lost a bet with Edmonton fans over the Calgary series. Thought that Calgary was going to win. Um, said he would shave his head if let fans shave his head if they, lost the series, and, sure enough, Calgary lost the series, and Paul Bissonnette was put up, on the right before game 3, they showed him getting his head shaved. They didn't shave at all. They didn't go chrome dome on him. They shaved only the very top crown on Paul Bissonnette. With his mustache, he looked like a very thin Dr. Phil. It was kinda like when, the bum fights guy, uh, was trolling Dr. Phil on his own show by he shaved his head to look exactly like Dr. Phil, um, which was a brilliant piece of even though I hate the bum fights guy, it was a brilliant moment in TV history. Um, but yeah, Paul Bissonnette did look like the bum fights guy imitating Dr. Phil. It was a beautiful thing. Um, but I Paul Bissonnette's a little over the top the entire series, entire season with TNT. He's that loud, boisterous. I mean, his Twitter feed for years was just must watch Twitter. Um, he was very entertaining. He has kind of toned it back a little bit, but on air, his personality is great. Um, he's a little bit too much of a Leafs homer. Uh, he is a Coyotes homer, but I'm not going to hold that against him because they need all the help they can get. Sorry, Travis. Um, but uh, I enjoy him on the show, and I'm glad he'll probably be back. We're not sure about the other folks. I'm sure Gretzky will be back. They're not going to turn it back on Gretzky or anything. But there's been rumors that perhaps Rick Tocchet is on might join coaching ranks. I'm sure Anson Carter will be back. But I really enjoyed the TNT. Except I didn't like the how ESPN has the iconic intro music to hockey, their hockey coverage. I didn't like TNT's intro music. It made it sound like it made it sound like a news story, like when they do crisis stuff on TV news. So, howdy to Mike and Kat. Thanks for joining us tonight. Um, but overall, the coverage was good. I know there were some complaints about some of the broadcasters. I didn't have any issues with the broadcasting teams or anything like that. So, looking forward to seeing TNT get better next season. And yeah, so um, interesting news out of Seattle. Chris Drieger, the goaltender for the Seattle Kraken, he's the backup to Philip Grubauer, although we're not sure if Grubauer is gonna return to Seattle. He might get traded in the offseason. Although, that makes it a lot harder this season because, Chris Drieger was injured in the IIHF World Championships they were in Finland this year. And, so he injured some ligaments in his knee, so knee surgery. He is out 8 to 9 months. We will not see him till probably around the trade deadline, in March of next season. So, yeah, uh, it again raises the question every time this happens at the World Championships is, our team's gonna stop allowing their players, especially their contracted players, from going over and playing for, Team Canada, Team USA, whatever team they that they're based out of. Um, this is a blow to the Kraken, although I don't think anybody's expecting the Kraken to make any, big runs next season. They're a work in progress. That roster is a mess, but they have cap space, and they do have brand new shiny stuff. So you might be able to attract some free agents, maybe Evander Kane because Kane likes the money. So, um, but other news in the league, despite making the playoffs every season, he was the head coach of the Boston Bruins. Bruce Cassidy was released from his actually, he was fired, I guess is the way to term it. Bruins management noted a need for a new voice in the room, and it they don't like Bruce Cassidy's voice apparently. So um, it was a stunner. I don't think a lot of people saw Bruce Cassidy being out in Boston. Again, I said they've been in the playoffs every year. He's been head coach. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2019. His team is getting older. I wouldn't blame the failure to perform on those reasons because Bruins management has allowed that roster to get older. Um, they did lose David Krejci this year. I think that was a big thing. There is some rumors that if, since Cassidy's been let go, that there was some tension between Krejci and Cassidy, and that's why Krejci went home this season, and he might come back. I don't know. There's still lots of stuff in flux in Boston. Is this the start of a rebuild? David Pastrnak, believe he has a contract through next season, but they can start negotiating this summer for a new contract extension. Patrice Bergeron, no word on whether he's going to retire or not. So it may be a big changing of the guard. This might be an opportunity for Boston to really reset the franchise. Um, there's rumors that next year's number one overall pick is, it's a local Boston kid, and that they might want to, tank for this guy. That's a little extreme to go from a playoff contending team to complete tank. Although we saw it with Montreal this year, they've you know made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, although very surprisingly, and then they've finished dead last, and they're going to get Shane Wright in the draft. So, but one of the big topics as we're going through this the end of the season, now that most of the teams have been eliminated, we're down to 28 teams have been eliminated. We got 3 teams to go. 29 teams have been eliminated. 3 teams to go. Um, it feels like that coaching carousel. We've got about 8 or 9 coaching vacancies right now. Is kind of in a holding pattern because they're trying to wait till Barry Trotz decides what he wants to do. There's been a lot of rumors in the last few weeks about Barry Trotz going to Winnipeg, which is where he's from. Uh, a lot of it that makes sense. I mean, it's a shallow team that he might be able to have quick success. I mean, he's had success wherever he's gone, whether it's Nashville, Washington winning the Stanley Cup, or the New York Islanders. Um, I still think it was a massive mistake for the Islanders to get rid of Barry Trotz, but that's on them, and we'll see if he ends up in Winnipeg. But I think there are other teams that are really sniffing around trying to get Trotz. Um, and I think Winnipeg will feel very jilted if they don't get him because they have put things in place to try and entice him, like bringing in some of his old coaching assistant coaches from his Washington days that he really works well with, like Scott Arniel. Um, so they may be kind of scrambling if Barry Trotz falls through. Um, but I do think that teams like Vegas, um, maybe Philadelphia, uh, Boston now getting into the mix for Barry Trotz. Boston would be a good fit for Barry Trotz. The Vegas Golden Knights will spend whatever money they want to because they want the shiny new toy. Um, they're all in, and they can't get rid of the gambler's high in Vegas. So they're going to go after every shiny thing that they can find. And Barry Trotz definitely is the shiny coach. But I think once Trotz makes his decision, then you're going to start seeing other coaches fall into place. Um, if you're a team that's not in the Barry Trotz sweepstakes, go ahead and make your selection because you're probably going to get a pick of some fairly decent coaches. Um, and there's also discussion in Boston about their minor league coach Nate Lehman, who's won a couple World Junior Championships and led Team USA. Um, and like we've been salivating at the prospect of John Tortorella going to Philadelphia and the face-offs between the media. I mean, that should be a season ticket package in and of itself with the post-game pressers between John Tortorella and the Philadelphia media. But yeah, once Barry Trotz makes his decision, I think we'll see quite a bit of movement. I don't know that any teams are really waiting. I know that there was a couple of assistant coaches, maybe from Tampa, or um, and that might be what Detroit's waiting on is assistant coach from Tampa to get free after the season to make their move. But we'll I don't know. We'll see if that's what Detroit is moving. There's also everything has become betting in the world of hockey now. Once they've legalized sports betting in the United States, it's gone crazy, and, there's a market for who gets hired as coaches. Like, they just announced the Boston Bruins line, and their favorite is Nate Leaman. Um, but, Barry Trotz is on there, John Tortorella is on there. So if you wanna throw some money away on, trying to pick the next head coach of the Boston Bruins or any other NHL franchise, you certainly can do it, via your favorite, sporting app, betting app, um, of which there are billions now, I think. You can't watch sports without getting inundated with betting apps and their ads. So, um, make sure I got everything here. All right, so, we'll wrap up tonight. NHL awards been announced over the last week. There were some surprises, and, um, so Jack Adams, I believe Travis said that he thought Daryl Sutter was gonna win it. He did win that trophy. I thought perhaps Andrew Burnett, or, Gallant, and we were talking about Gallant because he's got the New York media there, um, and it's voted on by the media, but Daryl Sutter won the award, fitting, surprising for a guy who's won a couple Stanley Cups and been coaching forever. This was his first, Jack Adams award, and he's been a quality coach. His message does wear out after a while, but he's a quality coach wherever he's gone, so, and this is his 2nd stint in Calgary, and, congrats to him. The Willie O'Ree Community Hero Award, now, uh, there's the it's listed as a leadership award, and I was wondering what the difference between the Willie and the Mark Messier was. This is actually community leaders, community volunteers, and that type of stuff. They're not hockey players per se. These are people in the community doing good work. So, a gentleman by the name of Noel Acton, who runs Tender Bridge Foundation in Maryland, which, gets kids into hockey, and, provides them with equipment, gets them rink time and all that stuff. Has been doing it for almost 20 years in Baltimore, Maryland. So congratulations to him, and his, foundation, Tender Bridge Foundation. The Masterton Trophy, we were expecting this to be, uh, what's his name from the, Flyers? Um, Kevin Hayes, because his brother tragically passed away in the offseason. He took some time off, came back. It was a very emotional time when he, had his first goal, and generally the NHL kind of laps that story up of perseverance, and then, that they end up getting the Masterton. Carey Price had a different story. He had knee injury, or hip injury, last season, but, he had checked himself into the NHL substance abuse, and health program. Um, I'm not su they didn't divulge what it was, but, um, he got the help that he needed. I think it was more mental health than anything, and, he was able to come back at the end of the season and play a couple games. No word on whether he's going to play full-time next season or not, whether he retires. But, yeah, Carey Price won the Masterton Trophy, and, let's see, Selke Trophy for the best defensive forward, the best forward in the defensive aspects of their game, I think is how it's listed. Uh, Kind of unlocked for a guy like Patrice Bergeron. He's been winning it for the last few years. He is a great defensive forward, a great leader. Um, he's, this might be his last award. He may retire in the offseason. We're not sure yet, but, a nice note to go out on if he does retire. The Lady Byng was won by Kyle Connor of the Winnipeg Jets. Lady Byng is the most gentlemanly player in the NHL. He only had 4 penalty minutes this season. I think one was to stop a Connor McDavid breakaway. But, yeah, Lady Byng for Kyle Connor, who had a phenomenal breakout season. He's been scoring in bunches, but I think he really kinda turned it on this season and is kind of the undisputed leader, offensive leader on a team that did struggle to score at times this season, but Kyle Connor was, I think he eclipsed the 40-point mark, so good on him. The King Clancy, this is another leadership award, but it's also humanitarian service for NHL players. Again, there's some duplication within the, Mark Messier Leadership Award, but this is PK Subban, and, I don't disagree with PK Subban ever winning a humanitarian service award. He's a great community activist. He raises tons of money. There's a wing of, the Montreal Children's Hospital named after him for all the money he's raised. I also think that the NHL is very keen to have PK Subban show up on stage because he is probably one of the most dapper gentlemen in the NHL. Always good to get him on stage, on the red carpet, and all that good stuff. As for the main awards show, that is gonna be on June 21st, which is interesting. Generally, the awards show, for the I think it's between game 3 and game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Um, it's gonna be in the city that whoever wins this series between the Rangers and Tampa. So it could be in Tampa, it could be in New York City. Um, it's gonna be hosted by Keenan Thompson from Saturday Night Live. But, it's the Big 5 awards, the Hart, the Vezina, the Norris, the, Calder, and, I always forget. Anyway. It's the, I can't remember. Um, anyway, the Big 5 will be, given out that night, and, they'll probably bring out the other award winners out on stage. This is the first time they've done it in the middle of the playoffs. Usually, this is the first or second Monday or Tuesday after the season's over, the Stanley Cup's been awarded. All the players can get to Vegas and do it. First time they've been doing it, they're doing it in a city that the Stanley Cup Finals being done in, uh, except for when Vegas made the Stanley Cup Finals. But that was still after the season, and I don't know. We'll see how it works out. Uh, I don't know if this is going to be the plan moving forward, to give away give the season awards while the season is still going technically. All the awards are voted on. These are based off of regular season performance. Um, so you, they won't have like a big thing about the Stanley Cup and the captain of the team will show up at the award ceremony with the Stanley Cup. That's not going to happen this time. So uh, we'll see how it goes. Whether the jumbled schedule of COVID and all this stuff this season, which has pushed things like free agency and the draft and all that stuff to July. Whether that schedule going back to normal next season, will they continue the awards show in the old Stanley Cup Finals next season? Anyway, that is it for this week. Thank you for joining us. It is a 30-minute show. That is awesome. Thanks for joining us on Twitch and on Facebook. I really appreciate it. And we'll be back. Hopefully, Travis will be back with us next week to talk about probably either game one that night of the Stanley Cup Finals. Colorado, it'll be in Colorado, um, or we'll talk about the results of game one if it's on Wednesday night. So, but we'll get a deep dive into the Stanley Cup Finals and see who we think is going to win that series. So, thanks everyone for joining us, and we will talk to you all next week.